Good morning. Welcome to the interview section of APSIPA. Today is March 6, 2012, and it is our honor to invite Professor Antonio Ortega. Professor Ortega is an expert in multimedia signal processing. His research interests cover the area of digital image and video compression, robust algorithms for signal processing. So, Professor, for many people, APSIPA is still new for them. Can you please explain about the transaction of APSIPA as a new community?
The new transactions, okay. So thanks for having me here. So for the new transactions, they're going to be starting this year. So we're currently gathering the first papers, invited papers, and they're going to be published in May or June 2012. This transactions, it's called Transactions on Signal Information Processing. And it's a completely open access transaction, so that means that once a paper is accepted for publication, anybody anywhere can access it for free. They don't need an account, they don't need a special permission or anything. The papers are basically available online. It's transactions in partnership with Cambridge University Press. And so we've been working with them very closely. And the transactions is going to be part of their Cambridge Journals Online platform. And so by working with them, we're able to leverage all the investments they're making on that online platform and the tools that are available through the platform, for example, for sharing and reviewing of papers. So the goal with these transactions is, first of all, to make it all electronic open access. I think this is really the way things are going to go in the future. So the paper-bound transactions are the legacy, and they're nice and all, but that's not the way things will be in the future. So I wanted these transactions, the committee that designed them, wanted them to be completely 100% online and available. In addition, they focus on topics that are somewhat outside of the scope of current journals. And in particular, they encourage submissions of papers that are using signal processing tools, but for data sets that are not necessarily signal processing. So for data analysis in different kinds of domains, but not necessarily what you would normally think of as systems, that is, not necessarily images, video, speech, etc. So of course we still welcome publications that address problems in traditional signal processing, but we want to broaden the scope. We also want to, over time, make these transactions a place where we can experiment with new tools for people to share their content. And already Transactions has tools that allow people to post on Twitter saying, okay, this is an interesting paper, but we would like to go beyond that. So in some sense, if you think about Transactions, typical publications and how they've been designed up to now, they involve a review process. So a group of experts decides that the paper is sufficiently novel for publication, and we'll still have that. Okay, but that's one type of review. Nowadays, there are lots of publications all the time. They're available very easily, and what's difficult in some sense is to determine what's important and what's useful out of everything that gets published. And we have some way of doing this by looking at citations. Right? So over time, after a few years, we can see that some work was more followed or more important and more interesting because it was cited more frequently. But there are not that many mechanisms to do this immediately. So one of the things that I would like to push with these new transactions is for the ability of readers to actually comment on the work and help others find out about the work. Okay? So now this is a long-term goal. We're not there yet, but I would envision a way of enabling reviews, such as the reviews that you see, for example, for software or for restaurants or for apps, but applied to papers. So you would like people who read the work to recommend it to others, to talk about it, and that would make it easier in turn for others to find out about the work and use it.
So it sounds like the APSIPA is aimed like being a professional and large-scale association to improve and make a contribution to this domain, right?
Well, APSIPA is not just about the transactions. I think it's an organization which starts in the Asia-Pacific context that seeks to bring together lots of activities that are now done either with other organizations or independently in each country. And I think what's exciting about it, in my view, is that there are lots of scientific activities in Asia-Pacific area, but there's no organization that brings them together in one place. Okay, so you have in various countries journals or conferences that are organized locally, and in some cases even attract participants from other countries in the region. But you don't have an organization that is seen as a regional or international organization. And I would say a good analogy might be the role that an organization like EURASID plays in Europe, where they organize conferences that rotate within different countries, and they have members from countries throughout Europe and beyond.
And we know that you are the chief of the LinkedIn group online for Signal and Image Processing Institute at USC. So, do you have any suggestions for the LinkedIn group of APSIPA? Or what kind of content would you like to?
Yeah, so I guess my first suggestion would be that these groups really have to be open to anybody, or at least to anybody who's requesting it. The CP group is, it's closed in the sense that it's only for CP alumni and people who are affiliated with the research institute here. But anybody who wants to participate is allowed to, as long as they were at USC at some point. So for APSIPA, you could view it as also a closed group where if you're a member you can participate, if not you cannot. But I think at this stage of the organization, probably it's better to keep it completely open, because it's also not that easy to determine who is really a member and who's not a member and so forth. So my advice would be to keep it open and just use it as a way to publicize the organization, as opposed to keeping it closed and allowing only APSIPA members to participate.
Mm-hmm. So we have talked about architecture of APSIPA's social nation. So let's come to the state of art of technologies. Today I just bring a very interesting image here. And actually, this is the very first digital camera in the world. And the manufacturer of it is the Kodak company. So my question is, we know that the Kodak company is kind of the biggest provider and producer of the traditional photography relative service and products. But the mainstream of photography based on the traditional camera film, has been tremendously affected by the digital camera, digital products. So can you please give us some, what kind of technologies we are using today will significantly affect our next generation of life?
That's a difficult question, right? If I knew that, maybe I would be rich. But I think that in the case of Kodak, and there's many examples of companies that have missed the technology trend. The issue is not just technology; it's of course business. And so in the case of the digital cameras as an example, clearly focusing on digital cameras in retrospect sounds like the right thing to do, but at the time when these were emerging, it would have impacted their business at the time, and it's very difficult to make a case that you should de-emphasize a business that makes you a lot of money to take a chance on a new business that is not yet developed. So I think it's a complicated business decision to make, and there's a famous book about disruptive innovation that basically makes the case that in many of these scenarios, companies were doing exactly the right thing. They were talking to their customers were telling them, we need this, we need that. They were following what the customers were telling them. But in the long run, that was the wrong thing to do, because there's a new set of competitors that had a product that was inadequate. And I think that the main point of that book is that when those competitors start, their products are not competitive at all. Okay? So when you start with the first generations of digital cameras, not to mention the one that you just showed, those cameras did not have the resolution, did not have the quality that traditional cameras had at that time. I mean, they were really not a direct competition. They were more like almost a toy. Right?
Yeah.
But over time, the resolution improved. People figured out how to use better lenses, and all of a sudden, essentially, film became obsolete. But when they started, they were seen as cheap or not high quality competition for the people who were using film. So I think if you look at current technology trends, I'm not going to speculate specifically, anything that would have the same kind of impact. But one thing to look for is places where you have these really high-end products that get every time more complex and more have more features, and there's some emerging tools that are too simple, too cheap, not full feature enough to compete, but maybe over time will.
Yeah.
And so I guess you can look at PCs and high-end systems versus tablets, and maybe tablets will overall dominate in the end. So who knows?
So at last, I think there are still many students, many young students, young engineers who are coming or attracted by this field. Can you say something to them, please?
Well, I think that the field, obviously is attractive to me, as I've been working on this for a long time. I would say that the main characteristic in engineering in general, and electrical engineering or signal processing in particular, is change. So I think if you're a student, you're getting into a field where you're going to have to constantly learn new things and adapt, and so you have to embrace that. So it's not a field where you learn some technology today and that's what you will do all the way through retirement. Technology changes, the basics don't change. So the basic mathematical tools or basic physics or other basic concepts don't change or don't change as much. But technology, software, tools, all of this changes all the time. So if somebody is interested in a career as an engineer or as a researcher, you have to embrace that. So it's all about continuously learning new things, and getting a degree in this field is just a starting point, and you will have to continuously learn new things.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Okay,
Thank you for coming today.